shear rate. Shear rate is a change in wind speed and wind direction with height. When you get that change in wind speed and wind direction with height, that's a really good indicator that we are talking about some rotation. This is radar indicated though. We again have no confirmed reports of a tornado on the ground. The entire storm is moving to the northeast at about 50 miles per hour. Emily's going to go ahead and throw a track on that for us. Most cities on the track are going to be outside of the actual tornado warning, but it's still worth a mention just to throw some of those cities up there for you. Getting into Bunker Hill at 4:30, Millville by 4:34, Taylortown by 4:40, and then getting into Boones Hill by 4:41. Now, I want you to pay attention to the fact that literally everything beyond Bunker Hill, so everything after Bunker Hill, is going to be beyond the life of the tornado warning. Tornado warning expected to expire at 4:30. If you're just now joining us this afternoon, good afternoon. Talking about a tornado warning that is in effect for Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. Talking about an area of rotation. Emily's gone ahead and circled it there. We have no confirmed reports of a tornado on the ground. This is simply radar indicated. She switched it over to our correlation coefficient to maybe see if we can see anything that looks like there might be some debris flying through the air. I don't really see anything overly impressive, maybe some anomalies in the colors here, but I don't see anything that would be a really solid indicator that we'd be talking about any sizable debris flying through the air. So certainly some good news there. But we are still talking about that velocity image really seems to be holding itself together at least somewhat well. So this is something I think we'll continue to watch. Still got about another 7 minutes for the tornado warning. Tornado warning is in effect for Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. That tornado warning is going to run until 4:30 this afternoon. So again, still got about another 7 minutes. This is radar indicated simply based on an area of rotation that we've seen while looking at different radar products. We were just looking at correlation coefficient. That would tell us if there's any sort of debris flying through the air, and I don't really notice anything. So again, certainly some good news there. But we are going to continue to talk about the tornado warning that is in effect for Giles County. That tornado warning is going to run until 4:30. The entire storm is moving to the northeast at about 50 miles per hour. Emily, we can go ahead and switch back over to our radar, zoom things out, look at the Tennessee Valley as a whole, talk about what else we are seeing this afternoon. Showers and thunderstorms hanging out across far northwest Alabama, Lauderdale down into Colbert County. We're talking about some showers and thunderstorms back across the Alabama and Mississippi border. Some of these thunderstorms have been really strong over the last couple of hours. We've seen a couple of different severe thunderstorm warnings, actually got a couple of different damage reports, more specifically out of Colbert County. So we've seen some really intense thunderstorms, but we haven't seen any tornado warnings this afternoon. We're still talking about a bit of a cap to our atmosphere. That cap, we talked about this on Facebook, and Emily's talked about it over the last couple of days. That cap has the ability to limit our development. So that's certainly some good news, but we are still talking about some really strong showers and thunderstorms across far northwest Alabama, Lauderdale down into Colbert County. And then, of course, we are talking about the tornado warning that is in effect for Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. So we can go ahead and back in, zoom in on that storm, Emily. We can go back to that tornado-warned storm in Giles County. A lot of very heavy rain associated with this storm, too. Therefore, if there is any tornado, I think it would be very difficult to see, despite the fact that we've still got a little bit of daylight left. So it's always good if we're going to have tornado-warned storms to have them in the middle of the afternoon. But we are talking about a lot of very heavy rain, so wouldn't be the least bit surprised. If there is a tornado, it would then be rain-wrapped. Back over to our velocity image we go, where we're still continuing to maintain at least a little bit of rotation right around Bryson, just to the north of Elkton. Emily's gone ahead and circled it there. Here's Bryson, here's Elkton, both in Giles County. Talking about an area of rotation, looks very interesting. It's not the tightest rotation, but it is rotation nonetheless. So I think it's something we're going to continue to pay attention to over the next couple of minutes. So if you are in Bryson, if you are in Elkton, you really need to be in your tornado's safe place. If you're in Lester's, at this point, the rotation is just to the east of you. So I think you're probably fine if you're in Lester's. We're going to talk about this area just to the north of Elkton, just to the south of Bryson. So this is going to be our area of interest for the next couple of minutes. Still got about another 4 minutes for this tornado warning. If they were to continue it, it would then move into Lincoln County up in southern Middle Tennessee. But in the meantime, we are talking about a tornado warning indicated by the red polygon. Tornado warning in effect for Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. That tornado warning is going to run until 4:30 this afternoon. So still got about another 3 minutes for that tornado warning. Still looks really impressive when you look at our shear. A lot of wind shear associated with this storm. Kind of tell that by the bright greens getting into some of the darker reds. Wind shear is a change in wind speed and wind direction with height. When you have that change in wind speed and wind direction with height, that's a really good indicator that we are actually talking about some rotation. Emily, we'll get to the severe thunderstorm warning that was just issued in a little bit. We'll stick with the tornado warned storm right now. I kind of want to see what it does over the next couple of minutes. But we do have a new severe thunderstorm warning that was just issued for Limestone and Lauderdale County. We'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. Still talking about the tornado warned storm in Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. We'll focus on that. At least see it through the end of its lifespan. Tornado warning for Giles County doesn't look like it's going to expire until 4:30. Still got about another 2 minutes on that. The area that we're watching, at least here recently over the last couple of minutes, is in between Bryson and Elkton. So no confirmed reports of a tornado on the ground. Certainly some good news there. This is radar indicated, so it's something we're going to continue to pay attention to over the next couple of minutes. We can zoom things out. We can go to the severe thunderstorm warning now, Emily. We can flip it back over to radar and talk about the severe thunderstorm warning. Looks like it's just going to be the northern portion of Lauderdale County, the eastern portion of Lauderdale County as well, and then beginning to move into Limestone County. So it looks like a new severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lauderdale and Limestone County. Looks like that severe thunderstorm warning is going to run until 5:15. A lot of very heavy rain, some very gusty winds, and maybe even a little bit of hail. These storms have had the potential to produce a little bit of hail over their lifespan, so hail is a definite concern. Here's Highway 72. If you know anybody driving along Highway 72 over in Lauderdale County, just to the west of Rogersville, talking about some very, very heavy rain, probably some very, very gusty winds. If you're in Rogersville, the heaviest rain, the gusty winds, they're going to be in your neighborhood sooner rather than later, because all of this activity is moving directly to the east, maybe moving to the north just a little bit. Still got the tornado warning up in Giles County. Tornado warning set to expire in about 15 or 20 seconds. So we'll see if they allow this tornado warning to expire. We're paying attention to the National Weather Service office up in Nashville for the tornado warning in Giles County. Giles County is under the service of the National Weather Service office up in Nashville. The severe thunderstorm warning for Lauderdale and Limestone counties, that would be under the service of the National Weather Service office here locally in Huntsville. But Giles County, they're serviced by Nashville. So we're going to see what they choose to do. Emily, we can go ahead and switch it back over to our velocity image. I kind of want to see what that rotation's doing. Maybe that'll give us some sort of indication as to whether Nashville's going to let that expire or if they're going to continue it, because then it would continue into Lincoln County. Still maybe talking about just a little bit of rotation associated with this storm. Still going to be somewhat interesting as to what they choose to do with this storm. Looks like, nope, the polygon's still there. So we're going to continue. There went the polygon. Doesn't look like they've continued at all. So it does look like the tornado warning for Giles County was allowed to expire. Doesn't look like anybody's chosen to continue that tornado warning. Here's Lincoln County. Giles County's over here, and then you got Lincoln County over here. Doesn't look like they've chosen to continue the tornado warning into Lincoln County. So we can zoom things out, look at the radar as a whole. We can briefly mention that severe thunderstorm warning. And then we've also got a severe thunderstorm warning back across northeast Mississippi associated with this really strong storm here. This should begin to move into Lauderdale and Colbert County, maybe even clip the northern portion of Franklin County here sooner rather than later. Again, gusty winds, very heavy rain, a little bit of hail, all going to be major concerns as these storms move to the east, northeast. So right now we just have the one severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for Lauderdale County and Limestone County. This does not include Athens, but it does look like it includes Ardmore. Again, does not include Athens, but does look like it includes Ardmore. That is a massive list of cities, but that's okay. So cities. We've got Anderson by 435, Cedar Grove at 436, Cairo at 438, Salem at 440, getting into Bethel by 443, Elkmont by 444, Cary at 445, Elkton by 449. We were just talking about Elkton up in Giles County. Bethel by 450, getting into Cedar Hill also by 450, and then Bunker Hill at 451. So storm is moving to the east-northeast. These storms have been moving somewhat quickly, anywhere between 45 and 50 miles per hour. Biggest concern with these severe thunderstorms going to be the very gusty winds. Wind gusts probably 50 to 60 miles per hour. And then we are talking about some very heavy rain and maybe even a little bit of hail. I haven't seen any reports of any really large, sizable hail, but these storms do have a history of producing a little bit of hail. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something we continue to see as these storms move through, more specifically northwest Alabama. The good news here is that there is still a little bit of a cap in place as far as our atmosphere is concerned, so these storms have been somewhat limited. And we talked about this being a possibility. We've been talking about this for several days. We discussed that it would be possible if we held that cap, these storms would be limited in their abilities to develop. And that's what we've seen for the most part this afternoon. We've seen some stronger thunderstorms. We've seen a couple of different severe thunderstorm warnings. We have that right now. We've got one severe thunderstorm warning for Lauderdale and Limestone County, but these storms really haven't been able to develop beyond that. If you're in Lexington, if you're in Rogersville, you're talking about a lot of very heavy rain. If you're in Salem, maybe you're talking about a couple of sprinkles, but you are within this severe thunderstorm warning. So I expect that heavy rain and those gusty winds going to be in your neighborhood sooner rather than later. If you're up in Minor Hill, up in southern Middle Tennessee, you're also probably talking about a fair amount of rain. You're dry in Ardmore for the time being. You're dry in Cary for the time being, but I expect that's going to change for Ardmore and Cary over the next several minutes. So we do have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lauderdale and Limestone County. Severe thunderstorm warning. I believe that is going to run until 5:15. I think it's going to expire at 5:15. I don't know that for sure. But these storms are moving somewhat quickly to the east-northeast at about 50 miles per hour. So this is something we'll continue to watch at least for a little while. See what these storms choose to do as they continue to progress.
We've got some, can we make sure my mic is turned on? I'm on 3. But while we're waiting to see if the National Weather Service will extend this warning, we do have some damage reports. We've got a spotter report of a rotating wall cloud. The spotter is about 4 miles to the northwest of Phil Campbell. We also have some reports of some thunderstorm wind damage. Trees and power lines are down along Persimmons Tree Road. And it does look like, let's see, Huntsville is going to issue severe thunderstorm warning for this storm just about to cross over the Alabama-Mississippi state line. This will go for, let's see, Colbert, Lauderdale until 5 o'clock. So Jordan, if you want to take over.
So brand new severe thunderstorm warning thanks to the National Weather Service office in Huntsville. Rather strong storm beginning to move into northwest Alabama out of northeast Mississippi. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County. Emily said that's going to run until 5 o'clock. Looks like our biggest concern there certainly going to be the threat for some gusty winds. At the same time, we also have the other severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for Lauderdale and Limestone counties. I believe that severe thunderstorm warning runs until 5:15, but don't necessarily quote me on that. Can we switch back over to the Columbus radar real quick? I wondered why this was all looking a little. There we go. That is a much better view of this thunderstorm. A lot of very heavy rain, a lot of very, very heavy rain down into Allsboro, Minot, Cherokee. You're going to be talking about some very heavy rain here in the next few minutes. Waterloo, currently talking about a lot of very heavy rain. Looks like the main part of this thunderstorm, though, is going to be south of Waterloo. Waterloo is not actually included in the severe thunderstorm warning, but if you're in Allsboro, if you're in Minot, you are definitely included within this severe thunderstorm warning. So some very gusty winds, wind gusts in excess of 50 or 60 miles per hour. If you're in Cherokee, I expect the rain is going to pick up over the next couple of minutes. If you're in the Shoals, if you're in the Shoals, if you're in Florence, you've seen some activity over the last couple of hours. You are dry for the time being, but I expect this storm, as it moves to the northeast, at least going to clip the northern portion of the Shoals. Wouldn't be the least bit surprised if eventually this entire storm does begin to move through Florence, but it should clip the northern portion of Muscle Shoals. Emily, if you want, switch it over to our velocity image. I kind of want to see if we have anything interesting going on, see if we have any sort of signs of rotation. These storms have been rotating off and on through a good majority of the afternoon. As a matter of fact, maybe we're talking about a little bit of rotation just to the east of Allsboro. That would be right over Minot, as a matter of fact. Doesn't really look like we're talking about any rotation up into Cherokee. You can switch it over to our shear rate. Kind of want to see what that looks like as well. Again, these storms have been really interesting over the course of the afternoon, specifically as they've been moving through northwest Alabama, Lauderdale, Colbert, and Franklin counties. These storms have been really kind of cycling in and out. They've been strengthening, getting a little bit of a tighter rotation to them, and then that rotation broadens after a couple of radar scans. But this is something we've noticed through a good majority of the afternoon. Some increased shear just to the south of Minot, brighter reds, brighter greens, getting into some of those darker reds, indicating some pockets of heavier wind shear. So that's something I think we'll continue to pay attention to. But again, we don't have any tornado warnings. And that's definitely good news. I want to stress that we don't have any tornado warnings. We just have severe thunderstorm warnings. This particular severe thunderstorm warning for Lauderdale and Colbert County, I believe, is not going to expire until 5 o'clock. You can go back over and actually, no, I want to look at our hail swath. I want to see if this storm has a history of producing hail. Not so much. A little bit of hail. These storms have had a history of producing a little bit of hail. We can go back up to the northeast a little bit, Emily. As some of those storms have been moving through the Tennessee Valley, this storm in particular did look like it had a history of producing a little bit of hail. The hail hasn't been reported to be that overly large, but still, just be bearing in mind that these storms do have a history of producing at least a little bit of hail. Some very strong, very intense thunderstorms, maybe a little bit of an uptick in the lightning there over Allsboro, just beginning to get into Cherokee. Heavier rain now beginning to move into Cherokee. I also expect the wind would begin to pick up in the rather immediate future. You can look back across Tishomingo over in northeast Mississippi. It does look like things are beginning to quiet down. But again, if you're in Allsboro, if you're in Cherokee, I expect conditions are deteriorating somewhat rapidly at this point. Maybe a couple of light sprinkles in Florence, but the main area of interest is going to be just to the west of Florence. It's going to be just to the west of Muscle Shoals. Looks like the most intense part of this storm, the reason for the severe thunderstorm warning, probably going to move to the northeast. Looks like it would just clip the northern part of Muscle Shoals, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if our main area of interest ends up going all the way through Florence. So bear in mind, if you are in Florence, if you are in Muscle Shoals, conditions are probably going to deteriorate over the next, I'll say, 5 to 10 minutes. So that's something worth bearing in mind. Conditions are really deteriorating back across Cherokee. Well, that's a really interesting picture. Emily, drag that over. I want to look at that.
This is Muscle Shoals.
So Emily's got a really interesting picture for us. Emily, F11 that. It'll look better, I guess, for TV. It should take away the browser window. If you F11 that. So this is a live view from the Shoals, you said. Where is this exactly from? Can you tell me a little more detail where this comes from?
It is right in Muscle Shoals, and it's looking off towards the west.
Okay, so we're looking off towards the west, some really intense storm clouds here, back off towards the west, really dark clouds, back off towards the horizon. You can see some really dark clouds. Doesn't look like any rain's falling exactly on top of this camera, so that's definitely some good news, but we are talking about some really intense clouds. Those clouds look like they're going to be something worth watching over the next few minutes. Okay, we can go back to our radar if you want. You'll probably have to F11 to be able to drag the browser back over. But we can go back to our radar. This is what that looks like on radar. We're beginning to see conditions really deteriorate in Cherokee. That's where the heaviest of the rain is currently falling. The gusty winds currently hanging out over Cherokee. Emily's highlighted a couple of different areas where maybe we've seen some damage reports that kind of looks like. I'm not sure what. Oh, that's a hail report. Okay. So we have been talking about a little bit of hail, and I told you guys that these storms had a history of producing a little bit of hail, and that's exactly what we're seeing. So we do have a couple of different hail reports, and hail is going to remain possible with these storms. Severe thunderstorm warning currently in effect for Colbert and Lauderdale County. That's going to run until 5 o'clock. So we still got about another 20 minutes for the severe thunderstorm warning.
I'm having mic issues, so it's probably hard for you guys to hear me, but I do want you guys to notice sort of off that it looks like some sort of wood off in the right side of our camera right here. It's starting to shake, so we might be dealing with some winds in Muscle Shoals.
Definitely some gusty winds over in the shoals, especially Emily's right. If you do look off to, that would be looking on your television screen, that would be looking to the right. You can kind of see the very edge of the pole over here. It does look like things are beginning to shake just a little bit more. So we would be talking about some very, very gusty winds here. Also, I didn't see the lightning. We would be talking about some very gusty winds, an uptick in the amount of lightning. I also would expect the rain is probably going to pick up here in the next couple of minutes. I believe I know exactly where this camera is, and it does look like the rain would be picking up. This camera is just barely to the south of the shoals, I believe is where that exact camera is, but I don't quote me on that, but I believe it is just to the south of Muscle Shoals. So this is where the storm sits, and I believe that camera is right around here, probably right along, I guess that would be Highway 43. I'm pretty confident that that camera is just to the south of the shoals. And then it'd be looking back off to the west, so it would be looking at this mess. It would be looking at this severe thunderstorm. At this point, if you are in Cherokee, maybe text us and let us know what you're seeing. The number's 256-382-2692. I kind of want to know what's going on over in Cherokee. I want to know what's going on down in Minot. I still want to know what's going on in Allsboro. I'm not sure if we can get a little thing with the phone number at the bottom of the screen, but 256-382-2692. That would be the number. Text me your damage reports. If by chance you're able to take any photos, maybe even any videos, please text those to us as well. I would really love to see them. And again, it's really as easy as sending a text. An uptick in lightning. We're talking about some very, very heavy rain. We do have some hail reports coming out of northwest Alabama, so we are talking about some really intense thunderstorms this afternoon, just as we begin to head into the early part of the evening. Again, some very, very heavy rain. Would not be the least bit surprised if we're talking about some very gusty winds. As a matter of fact, Emily, you could go ahead and switch it over to our velocity image, and then we can kind of pinpoint some of those wind speeds and kind of see what we're talking about. We're talking about some very bright greens. Would not be the least bit surprised if we're talking about some very, very gusty winds. We could probably pinpoint some of the winds moving towards and some of the winds moving away from the radar. So we'd be talking about what we got gate to gate. There's that number for you at the bottom of your screen, 256-382-2692. Please text us your damage reports. Please text us your storm reports. If you can do it safely, please text us your weather photos. If you can, we also love videos. The number's right there at the bottom of your screen, 256-382-2692. Talking about some very gusty winds. Not sure if we can pinpoint maybe a couple of the, oh, that's neat. Wow, that's really neat. That is a really impressive shelf cloud. That is really cool. I'm glad Emily picked that up. I know the pole's kind of in the way. I don't control the camera, y'all. The camera is controlled, I believe, by the folks over in Colbert County. But look at this. Look at this really impressive shelf cloud. Emily, is this looking off towards the west? I guess this would have to be looking directly towards the west, right? I'm not really sure if it'd be possible for us to be looking any other direction other than off to the west. So this is a really impressive shelf cloud beginning to move into Colbert County. Emily kind of confirmed it. We don't really have much of a choice, but it is definitely, we are looking off towards the west. So this would be the leading edge of that line of very strong showers and thunderstorms. That is currently beginning to move into different portions of Colbert County. Again, I believe this camera comes directly south of Muscle Shoals, and we are looking off to the west. I know the pole is kind of in the way. I can't really do anything. I don't control the camera. The fine folks over in Colbert County do that. But it doesn't really take away some really intense lightning there just on that camera. The pole doesn't take away from this really impressive shelf cloud. That's really, I'm guessing the camera just did that flash. I don't think that was me. I think that was the camera that flashed, which might be a really good indicator that we're talking about some very gusty winds that are beginning to move into Colbert County, or at least into this camera's really specific location. Probably some very gusty winds. I think the camera just flashed a little again. I don't think that's me. I think that's the camera. Let's go back to the radar, Emily. As much as I really love looking at this picture, this is a really neat shot of a really impressive shelf cloud that's beginning to move into this specific camera's location. And again, I believe this camera is directly to the south of the shoals. And we are talking about some very gusty winds, maybe some a little bit of light rotation. Go over to our shear rate, Emily. I kind of want to see what it looks like on wind shear. It's not that bad. We are talking about a little bit of wind shear, brighter greens, maybe one little speck of the darker reds there, indicating a bit of a change in wind speed and wind direction with altitude. When you get that change in wind speed and wind direction with altitude, that is a really good indicator that we are at least talking about a little bit of rotation. Back over to our radar, if you don't mind. I also notice an uptick in lightning. Looks like the lightning count has maybe gone up just a little bit over the last couple of minutes, which would also be another indicator that maybe this storm is gaining just a little bit of strength. We're also talking about some very heavy rain. I'll move over to the other side here. We're also talking about some very heavy rain, some very gusty winds associated with a severe thunderstorm back across Salem and Cairo. Look at this, talking about some pockets of very heavy rain. No doubt we're probably talking about some very, very gusty winds. Don't want to forget about our other friends. This would be just to the northeast of Rogersville. We have the other severe thunderstorm warning. I believe this severe thunderstorm warning here runs until 5:15, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I believe that severe thunderstorm warning runs until 5:15. Emily,
Yes.
if you don't mind, let's move the radar and actually go over to that severe thunderstorm warning. We really haven't been...
While we're talking about it, they did allow Lauderdale to be dropped from this, so it is just solely on Limestone, and like you said, till 5:15.
Oh, great. So we got some confirmation on the time, and we dropped Lauderdale County. So now we are just talking about a severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for Limestone County. Severe thunderstorm warning going to run until 5:15. So we still got about another half hour for this particular severe thunderstorm warning. If you're in Elkmont, things are about to deteriorate rather quickly. If you're in Ardmore, you're probably talking about a little bit of light rain, but you still got about another 5 or 10 minutes. Bethel, dry for now. Conditions are going to deteriorate probably in the next 5 to 10, at the most 15 minutes. If you're in Bethel, if you're in Cairo, you are talking about some very, very heavy rain, some gusty winds. Minor Hill, now we're talking about Minor Hill up in southern Middle Tennessee. Not technically included in the severe thunderstorm warning. Severe thunderstorm warning does seem to stop at the Alabama-Tennessee border. But if you are up in Minor Hill, you're talking about some very gusty winds as well. You're also talking about some very heavy rain. Back off to the other severe thunderstorm warning we go. That is in effect for, we still have a severe thunderstorm warning for Lauderdale County, but it includes Lauderdale and Colbert County. If you're in Red Rock, conditions are beginning to deteriorate somewhat quickly. Things are slowly beginning to improve. It looks like the core of this storm has moved just to the east of Cherokee at this point. So it does look like things are beginning to improve just a little bit in Cherokee. You're still talking about some gusty winds and some heavy rain, but it does at the very least look like things are beginning to improve. So we're going back to that camera that shows this really, really cool shelf cloud.
Lightning's really starting to uptick with this as well. I've been noticing it on radar, but this camera right here is confirming it.
So an uptick in lightning would be a really good indicator that we're actually talking about some strengthening within this storm. And then you've got this really, really powerful shot of a shelf cloud. The pole's right in the middle of it, and there's a lot of lightning. Wow, Emily's right. There is a lot of lightning. The good news, if I had to find any good news about a strengthening storm, it does appear that for the most part, a lot of that lightning is hanging out up within the clouds. I haven't seen any sort of indicator that we're talking about any cloud to ground lightning. So definitely some good news there. I haven't seen some flashes go towards the ground. My phone's ringing. We'll turn that off. But nonetheless, we are talking about a really impressive thunderstorm here. Again, this is looking back off towards the west, and it kind of has to be looking back off towards the west. And for lack of a better definition. We're looking at the front end of this storm as it's beginning to move over this particular location. And this is the EMA tower. This is out of Colbert County, and I believe this specific camera is just to the south of Muscle Shoals. Zooming in there, I don't control the camera. Our friends over in Colbert County actually control the camera, so they're the ones moving the camera. But look at this impressive cloud cover back off in the horizon. That's something that's very interesting. Again, Emily really pointed out a lot of lightning. You can't really see it here, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the winds are really beginning to pick up. But the increase in the amount of lightning, and that lightning really is increasing. It does appear it's happening a lot more frequently, just as we've been talking about it for the last couple of minutes. That increase in lightning would be a really good indicator that we're talking about some sort of strengthening. So here's that storm. If you're in, that looks like Cedar Hill Estates. Things are going to deteriorate very quickly. If you're in Woodland, you're talking about some very heavy rain. You're talking about some very gusty winds. We've got Highway 72. Here's Highway 72. Highway 72 back off to the west, back towards Barton. We're talking about the very heavy rain. We're talking about the gusty winds. And then we might even be talking about a little bit of hail. So then Highway 72 goes back until it meets with Highway 43. Now, where those two meet is actually out of the scope of the severe thunderstorm warning, but then Highway 43 would take us up into the Shoals and then eventually over into Florence. These storms are moving at about 45 to 50 miles per hour. Emily's gone ahead and put a track on this particular severe thunderstorm warning. A really interesting severe thunderstorm here. Sheffield at 4:59, Florence by 5:01, St. Florine by 5:07, Killen at 5:12, getting into Hatton by 5:14, Parkertown at 5:16, Antioch at 5:18, Big Oak at 5:18, getting into Foster's Mill at 5:19, Lennon Hill also at 5:19, and then Mitchelltown by 5:20. So it's 4:53 right now, 4:52, 4:53. So some of you have a good 20 minutes before the most intense part of this thunderstorm gets to your neighborhood. Some of you maybe have 2 or 3 minutes before the most intense part of this storm gets into your neighborhood. Talking about some very gusty winds, maybe even a little bit of rotation associated with this storm. We've seen a lot of that through the course of the afternoon. We've seen a lot of storms that have had some level of rotation. That rotation comes, it sticks with us for a good number of radar scans, and then it goes away. But I do notice maybe a little bit of rotation just beginning to move into the Shoals.
Hey, they went ahead and extended this severe thunderstorm warning until 5:45.
Oh, so we're going to add about another hour to this severe thunderstorm warning. So again, severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County. That severe thunderstorm warning has been extended to carry us through about 5:45. Really intense thunderstorm here with some really gusty winds, some serious upticks in lightning. Emily, let's go back over to that camera. I kind of want to see if the rain has started in this camera's exact location. So it doesn't look like the rain has started in this camera's exact location. And again, Emily and I are not the ones controlling the camera. Maybe you can see some rain there back off towards the horizon. Still looks like we've got a really impressive shelf cloud here. Again, I'm pretty confident that this camera is located just to the south of the Shoals. And as a matter of fact, I thought at one point that this camera was located in Tuscumbia. I believe you would look at the Colbert County Courthouse if you were to look down. But we're looking back off to the west as this really impressive storm begins to move directly over this camera. It doesn't really look like we're talking about any rain just yet. Maybe a little bit of rain way back off into the distance here along the horizon. Talking about this really interesting, really powerful looking shelf cloud as our friends over in Colbert County kind of rotate and control this camera. You can really kind of see back off. I think this is still looking to the west. I don't know. At this point, they've kind of rotated it, but I'm pretty sure that this still looks off towards the west. And so you can see that really interesting cloud front that's beginning to move in. I expect the rain would start up closer to this camera probably in the next 5 or 10 minutes. That would more usually be confirmed on radar. So we can go look at radar once again. I kind of want to see. I bet maybe we're getting into some very heavy rain that's just beginning to move into the shoals. Yep. So here's Highway 43 from the shoals up into Florence. If you know anybody driving along Highway 43, they're dry for probably the next 2 or 3 minutes. But then the very heavy rain and the very gusty winds going to begin to move across Highway 43 probably over the next 2 or 3 minutes. Here's Florence. Florence is talking about some very heavy rain. Emily, do we have the Florence Harbor camera? How quickly can you get the Florence Harbor camera? It's only 4:56, so I would anticipate we've still got a little bit of daylight. That doesn't look near as impressive as I actually thought it would. Some dark clouds, maybe a little bit of rain. We've only got a couple of minutes of daylight left at this point, so I kind of thought maybe this would look a little more exciting. This is obviously overlooking the Florence Harbor, McFarland Park, however you choose to look at it. But we are beginning to see some very heavy rain move into Florence. I expect that camera would probably look a little more active in the next minute and a half, maybe even the next 2 minutes, as some of this very, very heavy rain, some of these very, very gusty winds begin to really move in to the heart of Florence. But again, here's Highway 43. 43 gets us down into Muscle Shoals, gets us close to Cedar Hill Estates. Now, Cedar Hill Estates, you are included in the severe thunderstorm warning, and at this point, you are talking about some very heavy rain. We've already had some wind damage recorded earlier this afternoon over in Colbert County associated with some very strong thunderstorms. I actually believe we had some structural damage reported earlier over in Colbert County. Again, we've had some very intense thunderstorms move through northwest Alabama.
All right, this is the Tuscumbia camera, and I've kind of noticed a lowering a little bit.
I noticed that off in the distance. You're right back here. This is what Emily's looking at. This is what she's paying attention to off in the distance, where maybe we get a little bit of a lowering in the base of this cloud, where maybe we get a little bit of a wall cloud to develop out of this. We're going to keep watching that for the next couple of minutes. We can always go back to the radar, but we'll let Emily kind of watch that over the next couple of minutes. I kind of want to see, we can look at our velocity images, and we can look at our shear. Look at that.
Oh, they just moved the camera. Let me drag this back because you can see it a lot better now.
Okay. Oh, they did move the camera. So they kind of zoomed in on it, it looks like. Here's what Emily's talking about. And here's what we were just showing you before we pulled the radar back up, and now we're back to the camera. So here's what Emily's talking about. It's kind of back off along the horizon. It looks like that cloud base is kind of trying to lower. So this is kind of an interesting feature. Oh, they're moving the camera. I want them to go back. There we go. Go back. There we go. So this is what we're kind of looking at. We're looking at what appears to be maybe a little bit of a lowering. Kind of interested in that. And again, Emily kind of confirmed this for me. And this is what I thought. This camera is in Tuscumbia. Yes. If you look at some direction, you would end up getting the Colbert County Courthouse.
Notice the rain shaft off right behind that lowering. It'll continue to move, but you'll notice if maybe they'll stop moving the camera, just how defined that rain shaft is right behind it. So definitely talking about some very, very heavy rain.
So what Emily is wanting you guys to pay attention to, and honestly, if you're looking at your TV, it's right above the FOX54 logo. So the FOX54 logo is on the bottom of your screen. You look up just above the FOX54 logo. She wants you to look at this. Look at this really impressive rain shaft. Some incredibly heavy rain beginning to fall here in Tuscumbia. So this is what she wants you to pay attention to. And then we are also talking about the gusty winds, the thunder, and obviously we're also talking about the lightning. I haven't seen a lot of lightning on this camera since we've been hanging out here for the last couple of seconds. But then I also do notice that very vague lowering of that cloud. So that's really interesting. And actually, if we go back to that velocity image, I kind of maybe noticed a little bit of a tightening in that rotation, and that would actually kind of correlate right where that camera is. So here's Cedar Hill Estates. Here's the shoals. We're looking just to the south of the shoals. Kind of looks like that rotation's been trying to tighten up. Got a bit of an uptick in the lightning. I noticed a couple of extra hashtags. Not the social media ones, by the way, but the kind that tell us if there's lightning. So maybe this storm is continuing to strengthen just a little bit. Go over to our shear rate, Emily, if you don't mind. Kind of want to see what that looks like. And look there, just to the southeast, or southwest, excuse me, just to the southwest of the shoals, directly to the west of Highway 43. Here's 43, here's 72. I do notice a little bit of increased wind shear. And again, an increase in wind shear is a change in wind speed and wind direction with height, right over Richmond Hills. There's Tuscumbia. So this is exactly where this camera is. Here's Tuscumbia. That camera is in Tuscumbia. So what Emily's doing, she's overlaying the camera on top of the radar. And what the camera does is it really confirms what the radar is showing us. Look, a lot of this rain.
I mean, this is right over Tuscumbia right now.
So this is literally just now moving into Tuscumbia. Here's a lot of that rain, probably talking about a lot of thunder and lightning. We're also talking about some very gusty winds. So if you're in Tuscumbia, we are watching right along with you as this very, very heavy rain begins to move into your community, literally right now. So here's all of the rain, and then you look back off to the other direction. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure what direction we're looking at this point. Because we don't work the camera. Still looks like it's back dry behind this pole. There's the pole. Still looks like it's somewhat dry there. But you can kind of watch. It almost looks like this rain is coming right at us. So maybe this camera is still looking off to the west a little bit. Maybe they changed it and now we're looking south. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure what direction. But a lot of very, very heavy rain really coming right at the camera, it looks like. The good news is, and maybe it's being hidden by the rain at this point, is I don't really notice that lowering anymore. But again, we could be at a point where it's kind of hidden by a lot of the rain. We can go back to the radar, Emily.
I'll keep watching this.
I think we've got a somewhat good idea that we are definitely talking about some very, very heavy rain. Right over the shoals, right over Sheffield, down into Tuscumbia. That's where we were literally just looking. That's where that view was. We're talking about some very heavy rain. We're probably talking about some gusty winds. Emily, we can go ahead and look at hail swath. Let's look at hail. See if I didn't see any hail on the camera, but it does look like this storm does have a history of producing. Can you do me a favor and let's look at current hail. This is hail swath, so technically this is what's happened in the past. We should be able to look potentially at current hail. Okay, nope. Unless you just completely took off all the products altogether.
This is
okay, this is current hail. So we're not talking about hail currently, but thunderstorms in the past have had a history of producing hail. A lot of very heavy rain at this point, though, literally right over the shoals, right over Sheffield. We're probably talking about some very gusty winds. And then there's Tuscumbia. That's where that camera is located. Cave Spring, also talking about some very, very heavy rain. We're talking about some very heavy rain up into Florence. A little bit of lightning. A lot of that lightning looks like it's kind of focused back off to the southeast. So if you're just joining us this evening, good evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman. We're talking about some severe thunderstorm warnings. Severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County until 5:45. And then we have severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Limestone County, northern Limestone County. That runs until 5:15. So we've still got about another 10 minutes on that one. Talking about some very heavy rain in Ardmore as we get up north into southern Middle Tennessee. We're also talking about some very heavy rain up in Fayetteville.
All right, I'm going to show the, this is kind of starting to get over Florence as well, so I've swapped it over to the harbor camera so you guys can see. Well, I just accidentally closed it down. Let me reopen it. But yeah, we're continuing to see some heavy rainfall, but the National Weather Service, they have not said anything about damage, so that is definitely some good news. We're really just seeing heavy rainfall at the moment, but let me drag this over and I'll show you guys the harbor camera. And there it is. So definitely seeing some heavy rainfall right now. But other than that, that's really all we're seeing within the storm. But like I said, so we just did get new word from the Weather Service that they have allowed the Limestone County severe thunderstorm warning to become expired. So I'm going to take this camera off of the screen, and we're just going to kind of go back over the radar one more time. So like Jordan has been talking about within the last few minutes or so, notice that we are seeing some of the purples and the reds really mixed together. That is indication of some heavy rainfall. Notice we are seeing some lightning strikes within this as well. So heaviest part of this storm looks to be just outside of Muscle Shoals, getting close to the Detroit Park area, Cliff Haven, Sheffield. Tuscumbia seems to be out of the heaviest part of it right now, going to continue to track towards the north and the east. So it looks like Alabama shores could be seeing some heavy rainfall within the next few moments. Lakeview as well, definitely Florence, as we just showed you guys on the Florence Harbor camera. But like Jordan has said, it is just some heavy rainfall, maybe some gusty winds, and frequent lightning within this as well. But just right now it is continuing to be a severe thunderstorm warning. I don't see any indication of the National Weather Service making this any tornado warning or anything like that by any means. So we're just continuing to deal with this severe thunderstorm warning until 5:45. So we do have about 39 more minutes left on this severe thunderstorm warning.
Certainly some good information there from Emily. Again, talking about severe thunderstorm warning, that's going to be our main concern for the next several minutes. Severe thunderstorm warning, like Emily just said, runs until 5:45. Some very strong thunderstorms, a little bit of lightning. Actually, it kind of looks like the lightning has backed off a little bit. That would be some good news there. But we are still talking about some pockets of very, very heavy rain. Florence down into the Shoals, up into Killen at this point. We'd be talking about some very heavy rain up into Blackburn. Now we're getting really north up into Lauderdale County. That's where we'd be talking about that very, very heavy rain. And then we're also talking about the rain beginning to increase in Lexington, Whitehead. If you're in Rogersville, you're probably dry for now, but I expect things are going to change in the next couple of minutes. Here's 72, here's 43. We've been mentioning 72 and 43 a lot today, but they've been really good reference points for us. And so I think we'll continue to talk about them. Here's Killen, talking about some very heavy rain. We're probably talking about some gusty winds. Doesn't really look like we're talking about a whole lot of lightning associated with this severe thunderstorm, so that's definitely some good news there. Normally when we see an increase in lightning, we'd be talking about an increase in storm strength. But that's not something we're noticing at this point now as we head into the early part of the evening. Not really noticing a whole lot of lightning. The lightning counter seems to be dropping off. But still back down towards the Shoals, up into Ford City. Here's Ford City. We're talking about some very heavy rain. Maybe. It's been very hit or miss. We're talking about just a little bit of hail. But hail has, with this particular storm, not really been an issue for the last couple of minutes. But if you are in Ford City, you're talking about some very heavy rain. You're probably talking about some very gusty winds. Still talking about much the same in Muscle Shoals. We're still talking about some very heavy rain and gusty winds. A little bit of lightning up into Florence, back into Cedar Hill Estates. We're still talking about some rain. All of these locations are within this severe thunderstorm warning. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lauderdale, Cobber, and I believe Limestone County. That's going to run until 5:45. We have an independent, kind of independent of the one we were just talking about, an independent severe thunderstorm warning. That's going to run until 5:15. So we still got about another 6 minutes on that. In the meantime, we're talking about this storm here. Now, despite what you see, the darker reds getting into the brighter purples and maybe some of the darker pinks, kind of in between the shoals, now mostly moving into Ford City, it kind of does look like this storm is weakening just a little bit. We're not quite to a point where we can switch back over to the Huntsville radar. We're going to continue to use the radar out of Columbus, Mississippi. We're not to a point where I feel confident enough to switch back over to the Huntsville radar, but maybe it does look like this storm is weakening just a little bit. We're still talking about the very heavy rain, but again, I kind of noticed that the lightning counter was down just a little bit. Emily has zoomed things out. Now we're looking at all of North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee as a whole. And our primary area of interest is going to be across far northwest Alabama, Lauderdale down into Colbert County, and then back up into Limestone County. We're also talking about some showers and thunderstorms up into southern Middle Tennessee. If you're in Fayetteville, you're probably talking about some very heavy rain at this point. But then we get to northeast Alabama where things are much quieter across Jackson, DeKalb, and Marshall County. Emily, do we have the ability to flip over to the tornado watch by chance? The tornado watch was extended. The tornado watch now does include all of North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. It had previously excluded a couple of our counties across northeast Alabama, but now that tornado warning does include all of our counties in North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. For many of us, the tornado warning is going to expire at 7 o'clock this evening, or the tornado watch is going to expire at 7 o'clock this evening. So tornado watch in effect for everybody, and for many of us, that tornado watch is going to expire at 7 o'clock this evening. For folks over in northeast Alabama, I believe that would be DeKalb, Marshall, and Coleman counties. Tornado watch is not going to expire until 10 o'clock, so an additional 3 hours. Regardless, all of North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee, sitting under a tornado watch. Tornado watch for many of us expires at 7 o'clock, really everybody west of the I-65 corridor. And then for just a couple of others across northeast Alabama, tornado watch expiring at 10 o'clock. We haven't seen any tornado warnings across North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee, except for the one tornado warning we had up in Giles County. I guess that was about an hour ago at this point that we were talking about that initial tornado warning for Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. At this point, we're just talking about the severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County. Looks like that's going to run until 5:45, so we still got about another half hour on that. It's right around 5:12 or 5:13. And then we also have the severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for Limestone County. That severe thunderstorm warning is going to expire at 5:15. So we still got about another 2 minutes on that. Pretty sure the National Weather Service is going to allow the severe thunderstorm warning currently in effect for Limestone County to actually expire at 5:15. Then we'll just be left with the severe thunderstorm warning for Lauderdale and Colbert County. That'll expire at 5:45. So this is what we're talking about at this point. I actually think this storm might be weakening a little bit. Doesn't look as impressive as it once was. Still producing some very, very heavy rain. At this point, a lot of the heaviest rain has moved just to the east of Florence, just to the east of Tuscumbia, east of the Shoals. Still talking about some very heavy rain up in Killen. Heavier rain beginning to move into Rogersville. If you're in Rogersville, you are included in the severe thunderstorm warning. But I notice we're not really talking about a lot of lightning at this point. Where did my graphic go? Oh, there, it's back. I'm not really noticing a whole lot of lightning at this point. Certainly some good news there. Maybe some sort of indicator that we are talking about a bit of a weakening. We can go back over to our velocity image, Emily. I kind of want to, I want to see mostly, okay,
Let's try Huntsville now. Try Huntsville.
Okay, even Huntsville is not really giving me the information I would like to see at this point. We're kind of in that dead zone where neither Columbus or the Huntsville radar are going to do a very good job. But we can keep using the Columbus radar for now, at least to look at our rain, and we'll continue to follow this activity as it moves to the east. These storms are moving somewhat quickly at about 45 or 50 miles per hour. So when they get into your neighborhood, it doesn't look like they're sticking around very long. but they are going to pack a bit of a punch. So that's something we're going to continue to monitor. But the good news here, aside from the one tornado warning that we had in Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee, we haven't seen any other tornado warnings this afternoon. And there's actually a really good reason for that. I talked about this on Facebook, and this is something that Emily has talked about over the last couple of days, where we mentioned that our atmosphere would be capped a little bit. Now, a cap acts a little bit like a lid. If you put a lid on a pan, the water's not going to be able to boil over, but the second you take the lid off, then the water has the abilities to boil over. You can apply the same concept to severe weather. If there's a cap or a lid on our atmosphere, then thunderstorms are going to have a bit more of a difficult time really beginning to develop. And so that's what we've seen this afternoon. We've seen that cap on our atmosphere. That cap really hasn't been able to erode away. It's gotten weaker, but that cap really hasn't been able to erode away. The thing is, a lot of this activity is somewhat independent of another line of showers and thunderstorms that'll move through over the next couple of hours. And I still think that we're probably going to be left with a fair amount of instability. Actually, Emily, can we zoom out and kind of look back off into Mississippi? I kind of want to see if we can pick up on anything additional. So we got this line of showers and thunderstorms. That might move into different portions of North Alabama, but at the same time, heading off of your screen, we've also got another band of showers and thunderstorms. Still got a fair amount of strength to it. Nothing is warned there, so that's definitely some good news. But a lot of this activity at this point back across western Mississippi is going to move into the Tennessee Valley over the next couple of hours. It's got to get through the entire state of Mississippi first. But we've still got somewhat of a cap on our atmosphere across North Alabama and then even up into southern Middle Tennessee. And so some of these thunderstorms have had a bit of a difficult time at developing as we've gone through the course of the afternoon and then headed into the evening, now that we are finally getting in to the early part of the evening. Severe thunderstorm warning currently in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County. That severe thunderstorm warning is not going to expire until 5:45. And again, it does look like this severe thunderstorm warning has actually weakened a little bit, or not the warning itself has weakened, but the severe thunderstorm itself has weakened a little bit. I don't really notice a whole lot of lightning associated with this storm. Storm extends all the way from Lexington along the border there down into Florence. Town Creek's just outside that severe thunderstorm warning. Littleville is also just outside that severe thunderstorm warning. But I expect they'd be talking about a little bit of rain. And maybe some gusty winds. So for the time being, what we have is the severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County. That severe thunderstorm warning is going to run until 5:45. If you're in Rogersville, things are going to begin to deteriorate over the next couple of minutes. If you're in Whitehead, Lexington, I expect some heavier rain is going to move into both of those locations. So just be mindful of that. I also think some gusty winds are going to move into both of those locations. But I don't see a whole lot of lightning. And that is definitely some good news, because normally we attribute an increase in lightning to strengthen the storm. So the fact that we're not talking about a whole lot of lightning is definitely some good news. But still, this thunderstorm is something that we're going to continue to watch over the next several minutes. We're going to continue to pay attention to it and kind of see how it acts. Emily, can we pull up any of our cameras at this point? I doubt we're going to get any good views. I doubt we're going to get anything good at this point.
Tuscumbia.
Still looks like we're talking about a fair amount of rain in Tuscumbia. But at this point, we're going to run into the problem where it is getting, in fact, dark outside, since we are now about a half hour beyond sunset. And so that's going to make seeing things just a bit of a challenge, and it's going to render some of our cameras useless, because obviously as it gets darker, it gets a little harder to see things. But nonetheless, we can still talk about we can still talk about what we currently see on radar. And we do have really strong thunderstorms moving through northwest Alabama, Lauderdale down into Colbert County. Severe thunderstorm warning is in effect until 5:45. Looks like our primary concerns going to be some very heavy rain and some very gusty winds. So this is something we're going to continue to monitor. Over the next couple of minutes, this is something we're going to continue to watch, at least through the life of this severe thunderstorm warning. Eventually, we're going to be able to switch it over to our Huntsville radar. Emily, you can try that right now, as a matter of fact. I don't know if it's going to help us at all. No, it really didn't. They almost look identical, as a matter of fact. So we still have the severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County. Severe thunderstorm warning does not expire until 5:45. So still about another 25 minutes for the severe thunderstorm warning. Again, if you're in Rogersville, I expect the heavy rain is going to move into your neck of the woods somewhat quickly. If you're in Elgin, you're talking about some very, very heavy rain. Aqua Vista, talking about some very heavy rain. Things beginning to slack up a little bit back into Killen. Here's Killen. Still talking about some heavy rain, but it doesn't look like it's as intense as it once was. Here's East Sheffield down into the Shoals, beginning to quiet down just a little bit. Looks like the heaviest of that activity has long moved to the east of the Shoals. So certainly some good news there for folks in the Shoals, that it does look like things are beginning to improve a little bit. Our biggest concern through a good majority of the afternoon has definitely been the gusty winds. Wind gusts in excess of 60 or 70 miles per hour maybe. Independent of the severe thunderstorm warnings and the severe weather in general that's moving through the Tennessee Valley, we are talking about a wind advisory. I want to say that wind advisory is going to run until later 9 o'clock this evening. Emily knows the answer to that. Wind advisory is going to run until 9 o'clock this evening. Sustained winds 25 to 30, and then we'd be talking about wind gusts 40 to maybe even 45 miles per hour. And again, that's going to be completely independent of any severe weather that may move through the Tennessee Valley. Velocity image kind of looks like a mess at this point. It's really hard to pinpoint anything. I don't really see anything jumping out at me, so that's definitely some good news. Nothing really jumping out indicating areas of any sort of rotation. So definitely some good news there, and definitely would confirm the fact that at this point in the evening, we're just talking about some very gusty winds. And we're also probably talking about some very heavy rain. If you're in Ford City, I expect things are probably beginning to quiet down just a little bit. You're still talking about a fair amount of rain, but I expect the gustiest of the winds are beginning to move out of your neck of the woods. So that is definitely some good news. Still, even with the good news, we still have to talk about the fact that we are noticing the severe thunderstorm warning. Severe thunderstorm warning runs for about another 20 minutes. It's right around 5:22, 5:23. Severe thunderstorm warning runs until 5:45. Emily, if you don't mind zooming things out, I want to look at the entire Tennessee Valley as a whole. I kind of want to talk about how beyond this area of activity, beyond the severe thunderstorm warning, we've got some other areas of interest. We're still talking about another line of showers and thunderstorms beginning to move into Colbert, down into Franklin County. If you're in Russellville, probably beginning to notice a little bit of rain. Though if you know anybody traveling along the I-65 corridor, at least down Morgan County, down into Coleman County, they are dry. And if you know anybody that's going to be traveling I-65 through Morgan down into Coleman County, at least probably over the next 15, 20, maybe even the next half hour, I expect they're going to remain dry until, you take 65 north and then get up into southern Middle Tennessee. And it's at that point where we're talking about some showers and thunderstorms up into southern Middle Tennessee. Here's Fayetteville, probably talking about some heavy rain and some gusty winds. We're still talking about some heavy rain down into Ardmore. Maybe some gusty winds. We've got various wind reports. I'm not sure if that's just tree damage or if maybe we're talking about any structural damage. But we have had some wind damage reports. I do know we had some structural damage early this afternoon back across far northwest Alabama down into Colbert County. I believe I saw a report that a roof might have actually been blown off of some sort of a storage shed. So we have had some reports with these storms through the course of the afternoon. We've had some reports of a little bit of structural damage. I do believe we've also seen some reports of some trees down. And that certainly is possible. At this point, we've seen a little bit of rain over the last couple of days. Our ground is definitely saturated, so I think it would only take a little bit of a wind before we begin to do some damage. So if you're just joining us this evening, well, good evening, and a very happy first day of 2022, starting the new year off with a little bit of severe weather. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert County. Still got about another 20 minutes for that severe thunderstorm warning. Severe thunderstorm warning not going to expire until 5:45. Biggest concern at this point looks like it's going to be the gusty winds and the heavy rain. Storms through the course of the afternoon have had a history of producing a little bit of hail, but it doesn't look like that's going to be our primary threat. And then across the rest of the Tennessee Valley, back across northeast Alabama, here's Jackson, DeKalb, and Marshall County, back across Morgan County, down into Coleman County, in basically all of Madison County. We are dry, but I expect that's going to change over the next couple of hours. We're going to continue to watch as these storms continue to move to the east. But again, we just have the one severe thunderstorm warning that runs until 5:45. Technically, we don't have any tornado warnings, so that's definitely some good news there. But we're going to continue to monitor these storms through the duration of the evening. This is something we're going to continue to monitor and pay attention to. I kind of want to watch these storms and see how they act as they do continue to move to the east, because we are less than an hour at this point beyond sunset. Sunset's right around 4:45, 4:46-ish, I believe. And we've still got a lot of instability that hasn't been tapped into back across Madison County. Many of us had a good amount of sunshine through a good chunk of the afternoon. That allowed our atmosphere to do a really good job at destabilizing. The only reason we really haven't seen the development this afternoon back across northwest Alabama is because we've had that cap on our atmosphere, and that cap really does a pretty solid job at limiting much of our abilities to see further development. If we didn't have that cap, then we would not be talking about if we didn't have that cap, we would be talking about more rapidly developing storms. But what we've got right now is just the one severe thunderstorm warning, and I still think that maybe that severe thunderstorm warning, or that severe thunderstorm, might be weakening just a little bit. So at this point, it's right around 5:30. I'm going to continue to watch this severe thunderstorm warning. We're going to continue to watch it over the next several minutes. We're going to continue to watch any other activity that begins to move into northwest Alabama. But I think for the time being, we're going to step away because I don't really see much of an immediate threat associated with this severe thunderstorm warning. So I think as of right now, I'm going to step away and send you guys back to programming, but we'll come back if we need to, if we see any further development, and of course, if we get any sort of tornadic activity across the Tennessee Valley, we'll come back to y'all. But in the meantime, I think I'm going to go ahead and send you back to regular programming. I'm running out of stuff to say.